Welcome, dear friends. Today we are talking about digital services provided by the Ministry of Internal Affairs amidst war. I will inform you that the introduction of new services for a number of years have been one of the key tasks performed by the Ukrainian authorities. Before the full-scale Russian invasion, Ukraine has gained a lot of progress, in particular the Interior Ministry, together with the Ministry for Digital Transformation. We have experienced the disruption in the connection. Back to where we were, the Interior Ministry and the Ministry for Digital Transformation, a number of services have been granted, including the non-conviction excerpt. However, with the war, there have been other challenges, including documentation of the damages inflicted by the occupier. The digital services provide new answers. Both Google and the Ministry of the Interior help to document all the damages inflicted by the Russian occupier, including the Google Maps. What are other projects run by the Interior Ministry is the topic of today's talk. Our speaker is Ihor Bondarenko, Deputy Minister of the Internal Affairs of Ukraine. The floor is yours. As a way to introduce today's topic, as it has been suggested so far, over the years before the war, we were implementing a lot of projects. With the adjustments made necessary by the war, we were forced to do something we didn't plan for or we couldn't really expect. But we are coping. I would like to begin with the service that we planned for. It was announced last year. By the end of the year, we had been preparing in terms of organizational issues within the ministry. As it happened, the war precluded our progress, but the work did not cease. A number of services have been introduced. One of those is a new form of non-conviction certificate. It has been implemented now as a new way of record. It started on the 18th of April. I will tell you right now, we see that on the screen. This is how you can order such a certificate online. Since the 18th of April, we have issued such certificates in the amount of more than 21,000 over the 2 last weeks. You can see on the screen, for the convenience of authorization, you must use a QR code. And the person who is checking the authenticity of information is able to see whether this is a right one. And there is a special reference to authenticate the information from the official register. Why is it necessary? And why has it become of critical importance? The majority of the Ukrainian people were forced to leave the country, including women, children. and abroad they have to present certain documents and certificates, for example, a non-conviction certificate and related restrictions. And in this area, it has become very urgent. The issue has been solved. Apart from the non-conviction certificate, there is a matter of apostille. And I will tell you that very soon new changes will be introduced together with the Ministry of Justice that will also see the light of the day in the nearest future. The proceedings will be adjusted, so the challenges our citizens faced will be resolved and made easier to use. This is all about the service. If there are questions, I'm ready to answer them. So far, I think there are no more questions. Everyone can get online and see how effective and efficient this service has become. We hope that our work was not in vain and it will provide new tools for our citizens in terms of getting this criminal record excerpt. As for the issues we didn't plan for and have been triggered by war, we were searching for the solutions in the so-called online regime. Procedural issues have been solved, and a number of questions related to the transfer of data of irrefutable information on the atrocities done by the aggressor in our land. Although they state they do not share the civilian infrastructure and their claims that they are targeting only military infrastructure, all that set of fake news that they are broadcasting around the world. Our specialists have suggested new ways of putting up the information resistance. And we thought it made sense to broadcast live our criminal procedures for these materials to be used by the Ukrainian authorities when we gauge the compensations of those who have lost their households or cars or vehicles once they are recorded in order to broadcast this information around the world. We made a decision that we needed a project that will be crystallized later on, and with the experts from the Google Corporation, people who were digitizing information in peacetime, and about the general look of our settlements and cities. This service is available on the Google Maps. It's an interesting service, a very informative one. And you can see the updated information on how a specific household looks like today. When we were searching for the ways how to organize this bulk of information that the investigators are using, it must be very efficient and convenient. And of course, there are cases when we don't have specific data. This is where we search for the information from the journalists. So we ended up working in this particular format. the cities nearest to the capital city, Gorinka, Hostomel, Bucha, and other places. We have made photos of these places. We will provide you a reference and links to the internet on including Google Map service. And currently we are working on scaling this work. Unfortunately, the volume that we have to document is immense. Geography is also very big, including the Sumy Chernihiv regions, the places where we can document these damages. There are also settlements and cities where we are not able to conduct this service. We stand ready to continue this work. We are using the equipment that our forensic specialists are using in their investigations. So there are methodologies to be used, and I hope that we will be able to scale up this work in the coming weeks, and different investigation groups will be working in the territory of Ukraine. And I will repeat, in the territories where it is possible and where the access is available. Apart from that, we talked to and negotiate with experts to update the service, to improve it on the Google Maps in order to be able to compare. That is to say, we want to have two pictures in parallel, previous photos, and next to it, we will see the updated photographs depicting the consequences of the Russian aggression, all the damage and ruins. I think it will be an irrefutable proof of the damages so that there will be no more questions and evidences to be proved to repel the aggressor's rhetoric. And again, in this area, we are working shoulder to shoulder with the Ministry of Reintegration and other government bodies, including state bodies that are working on the assessing of damages and ways to compensate for them. Ministry of Digitization is also working on this. We receive information through the service DIA, and the data will be integrated to optimize our endeavors and to come up with a comprehensive resource to resolve this challenge. And if there are questions on this service, I would gladly answer your questions. Do you think we should be asking questions now or after the presentation? A related issue, and in parallel to it, something that was not analyzed big time. Our experts from the State Emergency Service and with the local administrative and military authorities, we've set up a service on the demining procedures, including the service where citizens can inform with the help of pictures and coordinates of what they deem to be explosive devices so that the SES can answer those requests and to respond relatively. I am not in a position to tell you how many pieces of information we have received, but they have exceeded 10,000 pieces of information available at this website of the State Emergency Service. It must and can be used. This is a service set up to provide security for the Ukrainian citizens returning to the places where it is relatively safe to stay. The explosives and mines have been left after the aggressor has been driven out of those territories. I appeal to you once again to take advantage of this service and to observe the recommendations coming from the State Emergency Service after they have checked the area. And if they tell you that this area is not safe, you should not go there. There are unfortunately examples when these requests have not been adhered to, when the vehicles were exploded. This is very important for your safety. This service is constantly updated, and SES and other services from the National Guard, they are working on demining, and they will be doing their best to make this as soon as possible. Together with our colleagues from the Ministry of Reintegration and the Association of Local Councils, we have developed a chatbot to evacuate people and providing humanitarian aid for people that are in need. It has been developed quite swiftly and has proven to be efficient. All the requests received are coordinated together with the Ministry of Reintegration to make sure that this work is made more efficient. The requests are analyzed and processed at the center where we set up logistical issues and provide all the necessary humanitarian aid. This is the service that we have been implementing on the go, as it were, in responding to the current situation and the requests we receive from the citizens. The other issue that I would like to inform you about is the fact that we must think not only about the issues that our citizens are facing, but we also should be aware of a number of Russian soldiers killed in our territories. These bodies are not taken away, but we are under the obligation imposed by the international conventions that we must adhere to. In view of that, in March, the Cabinet of Ministers decreed on the procedure of collecting bodies of the aggressor soldiers. It specifies that we will set up an information tool where we will feed in the data to identify the bodies so that we could proceed with this work. This work is ongoing. In parallel, we are also implementing a service that was outsourced to an American company. It's a rather information service targeted at identifying the bodies and their faces and identifying them through in the Russian social networks in order to find their relatives. This service is working. It is applicable with the systems used by the Ukrainian police. I can't inform you about specific numbers, but the fact is that we have identified those dead soldiers in the hundreds. The challenge now is to scale up the work, and it has also to do with setting up the register of the casualties of the aggressor countries, as we are using other methods, including the DNA analysis and other forensic procedures. In a nutshell, this is a brief information, and I am ready to answer your questions. Thank you. Dear colleagues, I know that there are questions. The first one from the Ukrinform journalist. I would like to excuse myself because I've got another event coming up in 5 minutes' time. Just one question, if you please. A question, please.
Так, чомусь не чую. Не чути. Зараз я напишу. Так. Так. Укрінформ, вас чути?
Не чую.
Ні, не чути. Добре, тоді давайте, поки він підключається, в мене дуже...
Well, in that sense, from our foreign friends, there were plans that DIA will provide such services as registration or re-registration of drivers' issues. Are there still these plans? Are they still on the table, or they will be postponed until next year as for the driver's license? If I'm not mistaken, the delivery of the driver's license have been up and running for a number of years. Currently, perhaps, there are some restrictions. Maybe the service has been suspended, but the service will be renewed. As for the launching of the re-registration of vehicle services, I don't think this is a hot button issue as of today. These services center in those regions where it is possible. They are working. Technically, we are ready, but the question remains open whether we will relaunch such a service. And another brief question. You mentioned that the Ministry of the Interior is working together with the Google company. Are there any other international companies that you are planning to cooperate with? This is very good that we are supported in such a big manner. I mentioned Google. It makes a separate case of using a separate service, but in different areas we are cooperating and very closely with other and different foreign companies, sometimes they don't charge us anything, but this is the way of interacting, and we are very grateful to every company that is helping us.
Да, дякуємо за увагу. Так, спасибі вам за
Thank
вашу
you.
роботу. Ось
Thank you for your work.
А можна тоді, от буквально коротеньке ще питаннячко зможете?
And another brief question.
Дивіться, щодо співпраці
As for the
МВС
interaction
Google,
of the Ministry of the Interior and Google company, how many places have been documented? How many locations have been recorded? I think I have mentioned that. So far, we are talking about Kiev Oblast and Irpin, Bucha, Gostomel, Gomerka, and partly the settlement of Makariv. I mentioned that this is the work in progress, and our challenge is to scale up this work and also to equip our teams to make this work more efficient. At this point, I have to thank you. Thank you for this press opportunity. Glory to Ukraine.